Well, the coalition is gearing up to announce a policy on nuclear power, and Labor's gearing up to run a campaign against it. What will it look like? Perhaps this is a good indication. This is a taste of what Labor unleashed back in 2007 when nuclear power was on the agenda.
John Howard says a nuclear industry is a solution to climate change. But he won't say where the reactor should go. He refuses to talk about a list of possible sites for reactors that includes Rockhampton, Bundaberg, Mackay, Townsville, the Sunshine Coast, even Brythey Island. Queensland. Beautiful one day, nuclear the next.
Will we see a repeat of that this time around? Joining the panel, Shadow Climate Change and Energy Minister Ted O'Brien. Are you worried about that sort of campaign being reheated? Beautiful one day, nuclear the next. I can just see them pressing replay on that one.
You know what's amazing about that one, Trudy, is that was from 2007. And here Labor is saying this, these plants, they take well over a decade to build. I tell you what, if they actually got on with it and supported the idea of at least even looking at it back then, who knows?
You had nearly a decade in office and you didn't do anything about it then.
To a zero-emissions grid, if they had. Sorry, what did you say?
You're in power, the coalition was, for nearly a decade. Since then, since 2007, why didn't you do anything then?
Good question. The answer is this. We have been evolving our research and intelligence on this for some years now. I think it was the last term of government, I led a parliamentary inquiry into this very topic, and we concluded that we should be seriously looking at zero-emissions nuclear energy. And thankfully then, under Scott Morrison's leadership, Angus Taylor then as the minister, they put the nuclear technology into our technology investment roadmap. We did international MOU agreements on technology transfers, including with the United Kingdom, looking specifically at nuclear energy. Now, in this term of government, Peter Dutton, under his leadership, we go one step further. So we have been evolving this over the years. And of course, in due course, we'll be coming out with our energy policy. And we've made no secrets of the fact that zero-emissions nuclear energy is most likely to be part of it. So
the CSIRO costings, you're disputing it. One of the things you said was they're not running enough compared to when they would. You said, look at Korea, they run 92% of the time. Australia's a bigger country, a lot more room for renewables, and it's a sunnier country. Surely we'd have them running a lot less, because once those panels are working, the sun's shining, you're not going to run what at that time would be more expensive nuclear energy compared to solar.
So I think what you're going to there, Tom, was the report put out last week that suggested that nuclear power plants might run as little as just over half the time that they can. That clearly disadvantages nuclear power in the analysis.
It does, but isn't it going to be part of the reality with a sunny
Well, no, Tom, I think
country?
it's the opposite. And here is why. Right now, under the Albanese government, we are looking at 90% of our 24/7 baseload power exiting the grid over the next 10 years. That's 90% gone. Now, if you look at mainland Australia, there's only one form of clean energy that provides 24/7 baseload power, and that is zero-emissions nuclear energy. If nuclear is part of the mix, and it's got to be part of a balanced mix, working complementary to renewables and gas, then we need it to be doing the job it should be doing. And so we can't accept a report that says, you know what, these plants only live for 30 years when their life is probably 80 years, and they only work half the time.
These
aren't part-time plants.
We're not a very similar country to Korea in geography, and the way our layout is, are we?
Well, we're talking about the technology, not the geographical layout.
Yes, the geographical layout makes a difference on how much you'll use
Tom,
that renewable and that solar during the daytime.
I hear you, and I wasn't going to correct you before, but if I can now,
Sure.
Actually, I wasn't talking about South Korea. What I was saying and I made this point myself to the CSIRO, is why wouldn't you look at the United States fleet, which runs nearly 93% of the time? You can't say that you are giving nuclear a fair go in an analysis if you cut its life short from 80 years to 30 years and then say it only operates half the time. Nuclear is not an intermittent technology. Unlike wind and solar, it doesn't just work some of the time, it works always. It's always on. and it should be, analysed as such.
Will we see your policy before the midwinter break, and has it been through shadow cabinet?
So we'll be releasing the policy, Andrew, in due course. As I hope you might expect, I won't be talking about our internal processes with shadow cabinet and so forth, but we're at advanced stages. And to be clear again, this is more...
So is it ready to go almost? It's just about timing and releasing it now?
Yeah, I want to make this point if I can, because you've asked about the sort of nuclear policy. We have an energy policy that will deliver cheaper energy, cleaner energy, and consistent, always on 24/7 power, right? As part of that balanced mix, zero emissions nuclear energy should form part. So we are looking at our energy policy, and nuclear will be a big part of that, but it will be due course.
How soon can you build the facilities if you were to win the next election? Because you referred to what Labor's saying, it's going to be over a decade, blah, 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 but how quickly can you get it done?
Kieran, the best advice we have had from around the world that Australia could have electrons on the grid in a 10-year period if it were small modular reactors. Now, if they are larger reactors, they'll take a couple of years longer is the advice we've had.
But within 10 years. And you say that it's balanced and gas is part of the mix. Why do you need gas once you've got nuclear in the mix?
Well,
do you really need gas on an ongoing basis?
You still do, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, you need it as the transition fuel. So we don't believe you should be closing down baseload power stations prematurely, but they will be exiting the grid. So as coal comes out of the grid and as zero emissions nuclear energy comes into the grid, there's a period there where you need to fill a gap. It's not going to be filled by renewables because under Labor, renewables have stalled. So all their talk of 82% renewables by 2030, there's Buckley's chance. No one other than Chris Bowen thinks it's actually going to happen, right? We are going to need gas, especially as that transition. And then as we go all the way through to 2050 and beyond, you will still need gas. And gas will play a role. And again, when we come out with our energy mix, we'll be explaining that in a little bit more detail, what type of role we believe gas can play.
And do you welcome the extension of Eraring, and what would the coalition do after Eraring? Because the gap starts there.
Andrew, I do welcome the announcement about the extension of Eraring. There was radio silence from Anthony Albanese and Chris Bowen about this, right? Eraring, though,
I think Anthony Albanese said he'd spoken to the New South Wales Minister about it just prior to the announcement.
Well, he may have, but I'm talking over the last year. Whenever we would question them, they don't want to talk about it. They know the fact that New South Wales Labor has extended the largest coal-fired power station demonstrates failure of Labor's policy. Because remember, Labor's policy is they're going to roll out renewables, all eggs in one basket, so fast you don't need these power stations anymore. Last week's decision proves that the lights are going to go out unless you extend it. So Labor's policy is failing. Oh. Last week also we heard from the AER, the regulator, that prices... Labor's got no chance now of the $275 cut in household power bills they promised. That promise they kept telling us over the last 2 years, wait till 2025, you'll get your $275. Well, last week we found out what the prices will be in 2025, and guess what? Some places you'll have to get up to $1,000 in order to get Labor's promise of $275
in
discount.
Queensland they're getting that. I guess they're happy. We'll talk to you next time when you're